Welcome to Iran Uncovered, the NUFDI podcast relaunched in our new studios here in Washington, D.C. And there's no better way we could start it off this series with a dear friend and one of the most celebrated journalists in our community, a truly amazing person, a truly excellent journalist, a true friend of Iran. Shally Zomorodi. Shally, welcome to the studio. Thank you for being here.
Is that why you brought the tissues here? You're already trying to make me emotional. What an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's so good to be here, and I'm loving this new studio space.
Thank you.
I feel like I might want to make it like a second home here.
You should. You're most welcome.
I like it.
Luckily, we have Behruz here as well. He's hiding behind the camera, but
he does the hiding well.
We'll bring him here. He'll be our next guest on the podcast.
Love it.
And the two of you are welcome anytime. And thank you for being here. So first, tell us, before we hop into this, what brings you to Washington? I know you couldn't be with us for Nowruz this year. We truly missed you.
Yes.
Elena did a great job, but maybe next year we'll have both of you.
Yes.
So what brings you to Washington?
We are here for a beautiful Iranian ballet. It's called The White Feather. And it's on tour, it's taking flight. The producers and the authors behind it and the principal ballerina has, since I first met her, has always had this vision through dance. And you know how much I love to dance is one of the reasons why I connected with this ballet, is that they will one day take this ballet to Iran. So they started in Southern California, and this thing has taken flight. It has grown. They are now here. We are now here on the West Coast or East Coast doing Washington, New York. I think they want to go to Europe next, and slowly but slowly the goal is that very soon that they can take this ballet, a dance that is forbidden in Iran, to do it there.
Okay, can you tell us a bit what is the play about? What's the theme, and why did you choose to be a part of it?
Well, I'll try to make a very long story a short story. I took my daughter to the ballet one night. I love supporting Iranian events, and I saw this one night happening where we live, so I bought tickets to take my little Shayla, 7 years old. Let's go watch the ballet. And it was on a weeknight. I don't usually do events middle of the week because of my very early wake-up time. So I said, Shayla, we're going to go for the first half, and then we're going to take off during intermission. We got to the intermission. I'm condensing the story. And I'm like, Shayla, we got to go. And I look down, and she's just crying and saying, Mommy, I want to see what happens at the end. Okay. A little 7-year-old girl, incredibly connected to the story of women life freedom. And I don't want to spoil the entire ballet, but it really tells the story of women in Iran, the story of freedom, the story of resilience, and really what so many people have been wanting and fighting for so long. And then the ending. Afterwards, I connected. We stayed. And I worked the next day with very minimal sleep, but I'm very happy I did.
You're used to that.
I'm used to it. But it was the beginning of a relationship with them that I told them I wanted to help whatever I can to make sure that more and more people see this. As a matter of fact, when we went to San Francisco, I'm now their welcome host, so I opened the show and I welcome everybody. I took my husband, and Behruz, who very rarely gets emotional, very rarely. I looked over at him at the end of the ballet, and I don't know what it is with this ballet. It's just there's water just coming out of his eyes. But it's emotional, you know, through dance. It's amazing that not a word is spoken, but through dance and through music, the emotions of so many people who left Iran, who have any type of connection with Iran, and or people who are just freedom lovers. All of those emotions come out in this ballet. So it's pretty special, and I feel very honored to be watching them on this journey. I do not ballet dance at all, but to watch people succeed in things that they're doing is always something that is a great joy for me. So I get to watch them do this.
That's awesome. Well, that leads me into one of the first things I wanted to ask you, and I think that the NUFDI audience is familiar with you. You've been kind enough to have us on a bunch of Instagram lives and talk about a variety of things, but I'm glad that we get to switch seats and you get to be... It's
a little uncomfortable for me, Cameron John, just saying.
Now you know how we feel. Now you get to be in the hot seat. But I want to talk a bit about how you started in all of this, because for me, and I think for a lot of Iranian Americans, we knew you as that's the Iranian lady who dances on the morning news, or that's the Iranian lady who plays Persian music on the morning news. Tell us a bit about your career, how you got started in journalism, how you ended up on Fox in San Diego. Tell us about that, and then I want to talk specifically about Fox and what you've been doing there.
This is like a 25-year story in the making. I mean, you go backwards. I've been a news journalist now for, I think, close to 25 years.
So you started when you were 10 years old.
I started when, I like this. This is good. Very young, though. I knew very, very young. And it was actually, I think, either it was Persian TV or it was a news channel that came into my career day or something. When I saw it at that moment, I'm like, this is what I want to do, and I want to tell people stories. Fast forward all these years, I went to college, studied at Cal State Fullerton, and for a minute, my husband, his name is being brought up so much today. You should just be sitting here with us, Mr. Bruce. We met at many years ago, and he did not want me to move away. For this field of journalism, you typically have to go to small markets. Sure. And he fell in love. He's like, I don't want you to go. And somehow I ended up in law school for a few months. And just to stay, and I was Miss Orange County competing for Miss California.
Yeah, I saw those photos.
Where did you find those photos? Hide them. Yeah. Those were a long time ago. But I was competing for Miss California, and that night I won an award for journalism from the producers of Fox in LA, KTTV Fox. Condensing story again. I never went back to law school. And I stayed in this and ended up working for an ABC affiliate in Texas. Then went to Voice of America, which has a really fun story.
VOA Persian.
VOA Persian, okay. When I could not speak Persian. That's the
How
story.
did you do that?
How did I do that? It was very painful.
Did you learn Persian as a result of that? Was that also Behruz's
I think it was
thing?
a combination of the VOA Persian and Behruz being in a relationship with somebody who was born and raised in Iran. And the fact that I just want that being Persian became important to me again in my 20s. There was a time that I didn't need it. And quite honestly, growing up here in the United States, I was born and raised here. Haven't lived in Iran a day in my life.
Have you been to Iran?
Yeah, I was 18 months and I was 4.
Okay.
I remember Pofak. I remember going to a school in Isfahan. I remember some parts of Rasht. I remember the airport when they picked me up, my family. And 80% of my family lives in Iran still today. Social media has made us closer. But I have hundreds of cousins I've never... See, now you will make me emotional.
I think that's why Mina put these tissues here for a reason.
Is that why you put the tissues? It's hard, you know, to be in between two worlds that you identify with, and you know that you're from someplace. I look in the mirror and I said, these eyebrows come from some of my kids, all 4 of my children right now. All of them have these big, beautiful Persian Iranian faces, right? Eyebrows that connect from one side to another. But I can't take them in some ways home, right? Where is home? My kids say, can we go and see Iran? And I say, I can't take you right now, Mommy June. Why not? Well, the government is not in a place that I can take you to show you where you're from. And that makes me sad for them, you know, that I can't show them where mommy comes from, where grandma comes from, grandpa, where daddy comes from, where daddy went to school. I know it'll happen. I'm very, very confident of that. And I know it will happen in their lifetime. They will get to go back to Iran one day. But it's hard. And that's just for me. I can't even imagine the people like my husband, the people that picked up and left, my parents, so many people. Sometimes I often tell Behruz, can you imagine with our 4 kids right now, with the robust careers that we have here in the US and the life and our home and everything, friends, everything, money, everything. And we have to all of a sudden pick up our suitcase, take our 4 kids to a country where I can't be a news journalist. I don't know how to make money. You don't know how to be an attorney or build buildings. We have nothing. We don't speak the language. That feeling is so surreal for me that I will never pretend to understand what so many have been through that have come outside of Iran, and then the people that are inside of Iran that have to watch. My family, they love me, so they always say, Berakhs, برقص برای ما برقص. But what that feeling is like for those that are in Iran that see that half got split this way and they can't do the things that, you know, we're doing. I went completely side topic.
No, that is perfect. But is that why we know you as, or we knew you as, she's the lady who dances on the morning news, or she's the lady who plays Persian music? How did that get started? So you were at VOA, and then you come.
Yeah, I was at
VOA. How do you get to Fox? And why are you dancing on the morning news?
I was at VOA, could not speak Persian. I was there for a year or two. It was a very good experience, though, because I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Then I came back, started working for the news stations in Southern California. I've been at Fox for 16 years now, anchoring the morning news for them. And I've always loved Persian music. Even when I was younger, I fell in love with Mr. Brucey. Again, your name came up. With Shally. And we were out one night, and you came and popped me a CD. Do you remember what those are, CDs? Popped me a CD, and it just all these memories of when I was a kid, because I grew up very Iruni when I was a kid. With my dad plays the santur, the ney. Shajarian was part of our home. Fridays, Saturday nights till 3 in the morning. Classical Persian music and all of us. That was all my lullaby growing up. So, and my parents took me to Sharam Shap at a concert when I was like 7, and he kissed me on my cheek backstage.
Formative moment.
Oh, I didn't wash my face for 2 weeks. He was one of those. No, him and Sharam are buddies now. But it was just one of those connections back to Iran. Has always been music. It has always been food. It has been arts. It's been the culture. It's been the language. It's been all of those things. Hearing my mom speaking Rashti, I can't speak it. I understand all of it. So my name Shally is a grain of rice from the fields of Shalizar. So I'm very tied. Wow. Something is always like to Iran, but I don't know it, you know? So when I came back and I started working for Fox, in all honesty, the Persian music, I jammed to Persian music 3 o'clock in the morning to get myself like ready for work.
I would think at 3 o'clock in the morning you have to do something.
You have to do something, right? And my coworkers, if they're my colleagues, I don't know if they're going to be listening to this podcast or not. I can say that in Persian so they don't know that I'm talking about them.
Unfortunately, we'll have English subtitles on all the Persian parts.
But who likes to get up at 3 in the morning? Nobody. So I started to come in and tell my audio guy, I would walk into the audio booth and I would say, can you just take this song all the way up? And I would put Padia, Faramaza, Asif, anybody that I could find every morning. And you would see the grumpiest, most unhappy people. It took some of them a few weeks and months to crack. But all of a sudden, they're now all dancing to Persian music at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, commercial break. And we started, the cameras are always rolling. So I would ask them to just start giving me the clips, and we started posting them. And it turned into a thing for years. And now at my studio, when I go in at 3 in the morning, they're like, good morning, Junjunis. Yeah. Good morning. And when's Nowruz? And this feeling of being able to be proud and not hide that I'm Iranian, which I did for a period of time when I was a kid, and I know many did because of the circumstances that surrounded Iran. I don't do that anymore. I hold my head very proudly, and this is Iranian music, and this is Iranian food, and this is how Iranians celebrate Nowruz. And
how did you develop that confidence? How did you, because what you say about hiding being Iranian, whether it was for people who grew up like my dad during the hostage crisis or whatever, there was a time, whether it was that period or something else, as you say, where people wanted to hide being Iranian. I think a lot of us have these stories. They pretended to be Puerto Rican or Italian or you know, some Armenian, I don't know, whatever. Why did you feel that way? And then how did you overcome that? How did you go from trying to hide it to forcing your audio guys at 3 a.m. to listen to Shahnameh Shabbat? That's quite a sea change.
It is a sea change. I think when I was younger, I remember my dad one day coming home from work. He's worked for biomedical companies, very established engineer. And I remember one day coming home and I could hear him talking to my mom about his colleagues making comments about being an Iranian terrorist and making him very uncomfortable. I think when I was younger, I realized, like, this might not be home. This is home, but it's not home. And we're different, but we're not. As a young child, I didn't know what to make of it. We still rolled with it. We did our thing about being Persian cultural day would come up in our school and I would want to dance. I remember the kids would throw gum in my hair, made fun of my eyebrows, called me a lot of names. But I never let up on the fact that this is who I am and I'm going to be proud of it. I was quiet about it for a while. But when I started to just put a little bit out there and I saw that people were receiving it, and I was like, this is really cool. I know this is what you might see on the news and you might hear this stuff. But if we all learned about each other and through these other ways of dance, culture, music, all of these things, and if it brings us closer together, then we fight less and we're less horrible with each other.
Well, and a lot of it, I think, is how you roll with the punches and your attitude towards it, right? If you see, I would assume if you were the same person or had the same characteristics then that you do now, very positive, very outgoing, you take whatever negative things somebody is sending towards you and you just, build more confidence. I mean, it seems that that's what you did. I remember in high school, I played tennis and I had for a while, I had a doubles partner who was Korean or Korean-American. And people said, oh, it's the Iranian and the North Korean, it's the axis of evil.
Oh, yeah.
And you laugh about it. And you say, yeah, we are. This is the axis of evil and we're going to, beat all of you guys in the next tournament. So is that what you did? I mean, you hear these comments towards your father. Of course, none of that's nice. Nobody likes to deal with that. But it's sort of how you deal with it. No, do you turn in and become a shell, or do you?
I like that you said that. I like that you said that because I think in hindsight, I was never anyone in my personality to be pushed back. So though I may have gotten quiet or sad about it, it's what am I going to do with this now? Right? So even nowadays, my co-anchor is Cuban. And we have a Cuban and we have an Iranian sitting next to each other. And the amount of jokes that come up during the show is a lot. But I use these opportunities now. And I think that was embedded in me somewhere in my personality as a child. And I do it now more than ever. I use those opportunities to educate. So you can't push me back anymore. So I use these opportunities to tell you about the difference between Iran and Iraq. I will use these opportunities to tell you the difference between speaking Persian and Arabic. I will use these opportunities to take out a map and say, this is what it is. And I will use this opportunity to tell you the Iranian people is different than the regime that is in Iran right now. So I think I can thank my mom and dad for that they put some type of fire in me to do that. I didn't think about that until you just asked me that right now. So thanks, mom and dad.
Joshua Khali. Speaking of the difference between the Iranian people and the regime in Iran, this is, I think, a reason that a lot of people not only like you because you dance and you sing, but they respect you because there are a lot of people for whom being Iranian or Persian, however they define it for themselves, they're okay with their Iranianness being defined as listening to Shahram Shahpare, dancing, going to the new Persian restaurant, or telling their friends that Persian food is the best, or whatever sort of like the my big fat Greek wedding type of everything comes from Iran or we're the best, like that's
doesn't it though?
that's their Iranianness. And for a long time, I think a lot of people were, because of what was going on in Iran or whatever, they were okay with that being the limit of their involvement or their Iranianness. But for you, especially recently, that hasn't been enough. You don't just talk about, Persian music is great, or Iran is different from Iraq, or this and this, but you use your platform, this platform that you've built, to talk about what's going on inside Iran and the Iranian people. Was that a shift for you? How did that happen? How did you decide to sort of leave this bubble or this safe space or comfort zone of, talking about dancing and music and food, to, hey, by the way, you've heard me talk about this. Let me tell you what's happening inside Iran. How did you make that shift, and what has that been like for you?
It's been difficult. I'll start there, and then I'll tell you why I did it. Being a news journalist, Cameron, most people, I would hope, know, our job is to be able to provide news very balanced, and for me not to give opinions. And I've said this to you before, I've said it many times. The only time that I try to influence you is to eat more horma sabzi and dance more in life. That's my influence. Other than that, you should never know where I politically stand, any of these things. As a journalist, there are people who are influencers and other people who can do that, and they have done that. That became very difficult when Mahsa Amini happened for me. I've always covered Iran news, and any opportunity that I've had that I felt like the news was important for people in my community to see, I tried to bring it up to the forefront. I don't know if everybody really, truly outside of Iran, or if you're not involved in politics, really understands the connection between all that is happening and what's happening in your home in the United States right now. I don't think they still get it, right? Iran very much has a hand in it. When I say Iran, I'm talking about
Islamic Republic.
The Islamic Republic in Iran right now. Mahsa was a tipping point, not only for myself, but I think for this entire community. It was a volcano that has just been building in heat for decades and decades and decades. How much can you sit back and watch people that are your relatives? I mean, regardless of whether we're blood relatives or not, these are our people at the end of the day. Suffer, not be able to do the things that we do, not be able to have freedom. People just want to go home. People want to just go and travel and just go see their family. My grandmother is very old right now. She tells me, I'm going to leave and I'm not going to get to see my great grandkids, you know? Like, why is that fair? Why is that fair that people rip families apart? And how many times in the past 15 years that I've been on social, I'm talking to people inside of Iran with their pain, their struggles. We want to come over there. We want you to come here. I hear kids saying, I want to go say goodbye to my mom and my dad. I can't go back and go to their funeral. There was so much pain, I think, building up for people. At some point, that cup is going to overflow. And a few years ago, I think it did. For me, for an entire community that we saw, and I really think for the world. I have never seen in all my years that I've been in this business, or even as a child, the amount of people that had stepped in and said the word freedom for Iran for 40-something years now. And it was something that I will never forget. I think it still continues, even though maybe to some the fire has turned down a little bit. But for me personally, to answer your question, I couldn't sit back anymore and say this. You just can't. I can't keep dancing here when I know that there's people that are dying on the other side of the world. I know life continues. There's only so much I can do. I think by dancing and doing these things, it brings a community in, and then we could talk about these things and have these conversations. I don't know. I don't know if there was one particular moment, but at that moment, it felt wrong not to. We could not ignore what was happening, and that just opened the doors, and then we just went in. And
yeah, you really went full-fledged.
We went in, and I've never done that before in my career. I'm appreciative that I have a station that supports me and respects me and trusts me that when I'm saying this is a story that needs to be covered, that they let me do that. And then I've developed this whole social media platform, which I have a far bigger reach, that we can continue to have these conversations. Yeah. And I mean, hopefully, I think it's making a difference. Yeah. I think it is. You talk about social media, and I wanted to discuss a bit about what it's been like for you to go in full-fledged, as we said. You know, you didn't sort of dip your toes in the water. You took this is my perception, the platform that you had developed, the influence that you had developed through dancing, through talking about Iranian music, through being this happy, positive person, and so now that I have your attention, let me focus your attention over here, and you really leaned into that. What has it been like? What has the feedback been? I'm sure there's been positive feedback. I'm sure there's been negative feedback. What has that been like? What have been the reactions that you've gotten? You mean like during that time or during that time up until now? Yeah. I know at that time it was amazing to be connected with this community. The amount of outpouring and emotion and gratitude that I was getting from other Iranians. I was able to connect people to the protests in their neighborhoods. I was able to connect people in organizations because people were reaching out to me, can you share this, can you share that? I shared maybe 1% of the stuff that I got because I needed to be uber careful with what I was sharing. I mean, there was some negativity in it as well. I think there were some, over time, non-Iranians, it became overwhelming for them. And they stepped out. I think I lost a few of my American followers towards the middle.
This lady only talks about Iran.
Well, it was not just talking about Iran, but when you kept opening the phone and you're hearing screaming and you're seeing women being beaten and you're hearing gunshots. I mean, even for me, I had to, at some point, start to reassess what I was posting because I'm starting to meet children on the street that come up to me like, Shally, I follow you. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want this generation necessarily to grow up with that type of sadness and anger. I don't want my kids to grow up that way. As a matter of fact, I think we have a responsibility to raise 4 solid, happy, loving, respectful kids so that when they are older and they're in positions of power, they make decisions to help others. I think when we raise people to be broken, when they grow up, they tend to make broken decisions and to hurt other people. But I think for Americans, if it's not knocking on your door and you don't see it in your wallet and you don't see it in your backyard, oh, it's happening on the other side of the world, it's Iran, So I lost a few of them. I'll get them back. I mean, dancing more to like, come back in, back in, we're gonna dance a little bit. And then when we're back in again, I just did a week of Cook for Iran. For Nowruz. I do it every year, a countdown to Nowruz. And the whole week that I did this in collaboration, we were raising money for the Center for Mind Body Medicine. This is an American organization here, staffed with Iranian psychologists, psychiatrists, who are providing psychological trauma support to those who were affected in the Women Life Freedom protests and whatnot that happened in Iran, those who lost their eye, who were raped, who were in jail. And I've seen the videos of their calls and how these people's lives, I mean, they were saved. These people were on the verge of suicide, some of these people. And we're still talking about this while I'm cooking Horm Sabzi and Maz Jabrani is calling Shambalile Shivid, Fino-Greek dill. I'm like, okay, we're cooking this. By the way, we're raising money because we still have people, it's finding that balancing act because people have a threshold here as well. And we don't forget about it. We just adjust and we say, okay, maybe we need to turn it down this way and then bring it back when it's time. And it's almost like this wave that we've even talked about, even that the people of Iran are going through right now. Yeah,
it's interesting on the fundraising thing that you mentioned. You and I were talking about this before. You do so many, you did the Nowruz Gala for us last year. Hopefully you'll be doing it for us again.
Hopefully you already gave me the date. Yeah. I booked it.
Well, it'll depend on how this podcast goes.
I told you I shouldn't have gone to the podcast.
You do a lot of other charity work. I mean, the thing that you said right now, the Cook for Iran week, I mean, I saw it, but I didn't even know, and I think I'm relatively plugged into Iran things. I didn't know that it was a fundraiser. The proceeds were going to a cause like this. How do you navigate that? Because particularly this fundraising thing in our community, I've found, particularly for us at NUFDI, we're a nonprofit organization. We don't have any government, funding. All the resources that we have come simply from the Iranian-American community. And it's a very difficult thing. I mean, I think money in our culture is a very difficult thing to talk about. People say, oh, that's taboo. We shouldn't talk about that. Things like that. But on the other hand, I see in tawaqo, in intizar, this expectation from so many. Why aren't more people doing more things? It's like, well, there's a tazodi hast inja. There's a conflict between those two desires to know. We can't have fundraisers, we can't talk about these things, but on the other hand, we should be doing a million things more than are already being done. So how do you navigate that? I'm sure you get criticisms. Oh, she's cooking, and what is this money going towards, or how do you do so much charity work? So how do you navigate those difficult waters?
Well, first I've had to come to this acceptance, and I think it's in all communities, but I've accepted it in the Iranian community. If they're watching right now, that criticism is just part Part of it all. There were years ago, it was very hard for me to swallow because I was like, what is this? But now I understand it. That's for a totally different conversation. So I'm not affected by it anymore. I feel like my job now, what I do, whether it's an Iranian organization, Cameron, or even American organizations, part of what we do is to help these nonprofits. We go and we MC and we do what we can to do it. I have a particular interest in doing things that are Iranian based. For all of our different organizations that are doing the work, money is needed for these organizations to do that. This particular, for example, Center for Mind Body Medicine, they need to pay and train people, and psychiatrists and psychologists and doctors, they need to pay for these things. NUFDI has costs in order to do it. Farhang Foundation has costs with all the programs that they need to do. Iranian-American Society in New York, they put on children's school to teach kids how to speak Farsi. So this expectation that I get from a lot of people, why is this fundraising and why does this cost so much? Who's going to pay for this, right? So that's where the fundraising comes. And there's some incredible donors. I know incredible donors who are always kifashun baz, and they're willing.
What are their names and phone numbers?
I'll give them to you after this podcast. And they're willing to help. But there's also a lot of hesitation when it comes to money. I think in this community, all communities, but I'm just going to speak in the context of Iranians, because of everything that has happened in Iran and the shock that people already have and the trauma that everybody has already been through, this community is already very
skeptical.
They look at
Cynical.
everybody, and very quick they could have what do they call, like a shack put in you. One little thing will get you thinking, okay, where are they going to put this money from? All I can do is my best and be transparent and say this is where the money's going to go. And then people can make their own judgments. And if it doesn't feel right, then it doesn't feel right. But we can at least present it to you, and I can tell you about it. And then you can decide if that's something you want to support.
You talk about criticism, and you've accepted it as a matter of life and what you do. There's a lot made about, there's so much fighting on social media, or Iranians are
but there is
disagreeing. There is. But how do you've managed to get over it and accept it? How do you? Something that's frustrating for me is how much people talk about it as if it's a uniquely Iranian phenomenon. Like, have you ever, looked at American social media and what Republicans and Democrats are saying to each other, or what I don't speak that many other languages, but any other language, and what people are saying? Like, why are people so obsessed with this? Oh my God, Iranians are fighting. Oh my God.
This is a good point, because you're right. We have a lot of infighting here in the U.S. between our political system and whatnot. I think maybe, I could be wrong, but there is this desire, Cameron, for Iranians to want to be united. And we don't always get that in our own community. We can watch other people infight and do their thing, but when we have it in our own community, it almost feels, I tell you, for me, like it felt a little bit of a betrayal. Like, why are you being mean to me? Like, but that harshness that comes out, I think sometimes it's just too much for people. We look at other communities and they have like a bond, even though I think Iranians do have it. We do have it. But social media has a very nasty and ugly world. You're right. It's not just the Iranians. But I think in the past few years with the Women Life Freedom, it really brought all of this to surface. And I think it was a little much for some people to handle, people that just may not have been used to all of this. They're not used to all of the criticism. But
so you've handled it, and you continue to do this work. You haven't packed up and gone home. How did you? I agree that there's a lot of this back and forth, but how did you sort of,
I want to tell you,
buckle down and go forward?
It was hard. There's a video circulating of me right now in a wedding dress, and I was crying. Oh my gosh. And this was like a video from 3 or 4 years ago. I was shooting a music video, and we were live. Nothing to do with Zanza and Azadi, but the amount of bad talking I was getting from Iranians, it just cracked my soul. And I'm crying in this wedding dress saying, what are you doing? Why are you talking to me like this? Fast forward, being in the world of psychology now and understanding all of this, there's only so much expectation I can have from others who did not grow up with love, respect, aramesh, peace in your life. When you have that kind of disruption in your own way of being raised, nobody can have an expectation that you are going to behave in any other way afterwards. So when you understand, when I understood that this isn't about me, it's about them, and I am triggering something in them. I had one lady send a message to me, long story short, sent a message that she created from an anonymous account and says, Shally, I have hated you for so many years. I've hated your laugh, your dance, everything about you, just, I hate you. And one day I woke up and I asked myself, why do I hate you so much? She says, Shally, my sister and I have a strange relationship. We don't talk. My dad and I have some financial stuff. And it was this one sentence that forever, this was a few years ago and it still resonates with me. She said, I hated you because I wanted to be free like you. And I wanted to be free to smile, laugh, and dance like you. And I'm so sorry for all the things that I have said to you in these years. All this hatred that you're getting from people is because they just want that. They want that freedom and the peace that I send out over the internet. I have my own problems in life, many of them. I just choose not to put them up on social. But it was in those moments that I started to really shift and say, okay, I understand. I'm a trigger to people. And as long as I know that what I'm doing, I'm focused, and where we're coming from and what our goal is in a good place, we're going to keep on dancing. We're going to keep on doing what we're going to do. We're going to keep on cooking. We have a cooking show now airing in Iran, and that's creating a whole bunch of waves. And you see the positivity that's coming in. I can't tell you in the past few days how many messages have come in from Iran and people making the pastas that we're making over here and saying, we don't feel good here. This 29 minutes of a show made me smile. And that in itself, that smile brings strength. And in that strength brings power. And in that power is when you can start to make change. You can't make change, I think, in other ways in a long-term effect. You need that strength in order to do it. And my belief, it comes from love, light, strength, and power. And that's what we're very focused on doing. So nobody's going to get me to stop dancing. I mean, unless you take the music out. You're not going to get me to stop cooking. And I'm not going away from social media. We've touched way too many lives. So now I ask all my social media followers that come, I hate that name, followers. It's very creepy. My friends, please ignore the negativity. They need attention, and once we start to feed into it, but I don't completely ignore it in one way because, Cameron, those souls need to be healed. They're screaming for help, and these are people that have been traumatized somewhere in their life. And if we're going to move forward and do anything in life, at the end of the day, my kids are going to go out in this society. They're going to walk in the street and maybe cross paths with one of these people, and these people could hurt my child. They can hurt us. So I don't want to completely ignore them and just say, okay, forget about it, ignore them. Mental health-wise, we have an issue on our hands here in the US, in Iran, everywhere. And it needs to be addressed.
That's interesting. I usually don't think about it that way. I think I usually take the path that you said of there's a higher purpose we're all here for. This is all about the people of Iran. We're just trying to do whatever small thing we can for them and help them. So this noise, these people who are complaining or attacking or all this silly stuff, people who literally their entire day is saying absurd things on Twitter or Instagram, whatever. My thought has been just ignore them because as somebody I hear frequently says, focus on being part of the solution, not those who are part of the problem, and just move on. But what you say makes sense, and it's another thing that I think about often, and I don't know, maybe as this podcast gets going, we can try and do that. But just ignoring those people may not be sufficient. Definitely fighting or getting in the mud with folks like that is I don't think is helpful. But I think it's a shame that oftentimes in our community we have a tendency that once somebody has said something that we don't like, and there's nothing that can be done. It's like, well, this offense has been committed, and that ship has sailed. But there are a lot of conversations, I think, that can be had, bridges that can be rebuilt if they existed. So how do we do that? How can we, if somebody says something, not nice to you or criticizes you, how can those of us who I think are focused on the bigger picture, on the ultimate goal of helping the Iranian people and doing whatever we can? It's difficult, though.
It's difficult.
It's difficult to say, hey, you said that, I didn't think it was really nice, I totally disagree with you, but let's talk about it.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
Okay,
that's the $1 million question, right? But it's difficult. But I think that having that opportunity to keep the conversations open and not completely ignoring, yes, there's a way to not give it more energy, but at the same time, still trying to find out what the root of that is, because when those people start to turn, like the ones that come back and say, I'm sorry, then they've joined. They've joined this like bigger thing. And the more that we can get people on this side is when we outnumber everything else and things change. So I'm on a completely different path in the mental health world with this, because I think we have a big problem really big problem on our hands. When we solve that, a lot will be solved in this world.
How much of it is mental health and how much of it is ego? Because I think that's something, I've seen this happen several times where there's about to be like a combustion. Two people are about to just, knock out, drag down, fight. And not me, but somebody else had said, hey, look, person X is saying this, person Y is saying this. You guys are about to have this knockdown, drag out fight. Have you considered this? Or there was a miscommunication or something. It's not really this, World War III that needs to happen, but consider this information or listen to this person that way. Is it mental health? Is it ego? Is it all of these things?
So ego is mental health. When I talk about the world of mental health, it's just talking about the way you live your life. How do you react? How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with anxiety, depression? All of these things. Ego is part of that. So when you are rich in mental health and you have the tools that you need, one person would react completely different in that situation than maybe I would react in that situation. We've lost our balance and our peace in mental health. We're dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression, high rates. So many people right now on different narcotics just to be able to balance all of that right now. So if we find and we get back to the root of that and find balance in that, when two people get together, they sit down over a cup of tea and they can have really productive disagreements. Productive disagreements, agree to disagree, and they move on. But we're not there right now. We're too angry. Egos are raging everywhere. We saw a lot of it in Women Life Freedom. There are people that stepped in that I think came in just for their 15 minutes and took advantage of a situation. But there were I saw a lot of egos at that time, rather than we're here for Iran. We're here for Iran. So yeah, my focus is on the mental health.
We're gonna have to talk more about
I gotta work on that. I'll find
lots
to appeal.
So tell us a bit about what you're doing now. You mentioned it.
Tell
us about that. And how that's going.
How funny that like 20 years ago I worked for Voice of America. I could barely speak Farsi, and now I'm back with the cooking show. I love this show. I almost said no. We did say no. I think we said no because I was like, how am I going to do a cooking show in Persian? Even 3 years ago when I go back and I watch season 1, I'm like, I cannot believe they put this on the air. I was like, Salam Shally, it was like the whole show. I'm like, what is this in Persian? How do you say this in Farsi? Oh, I'm so glad I accepted this. We shot 10 episodes a few years ago. This is before Women Life Freedom and what happened with Massa. It caught fire in Iran. So you recorded this before Massa? Yeah, the first season. My season finale was shot on Shapare. And I still, I can remember where he stood in my kitchen. I have pictures of him kissing Shaden. And it was the best day. That's best awesome. Day with Shadow. Then it was such a hit. It was one of the top 5, I think, shows on Voice of America that we came back to shoot season 2 and 3. So there are 10 episodes in each one. We did 10 episodes, and then that's when Massa happened, right? We did 10 episodes. The stuff with Massa happened, so everything went into lockdown. We just shut everything down. After a few months, almost a year, we had to come back and continue production, so we shot it very quietly. So Massa was murdered, and you decided this is no longer we couldn't.
time.
How are you going to people in Iran couldn't eat. They were out on the street. There's kids dying. And then, I mean, of course, absolutely not. Everything was stopped. So we held on to those 10. After about a year, when there's budgets and money and we had to go in the fiscal year to shoot it, we shot it quietly. Oh my gosh, it was so hard, so emotional, because we had to be like, we didn't know when this was going to air. And we're talking about Iran because at the end of every episode, we sit at a table and all of my guests, now I have 30 guests, I always talk to them about Iran. From Mojgan Shajarian, are you going to have a concert in Iran, to who else was on the show? Kamran and Human. Are you going to go back to Iran? What do you have to say to kids in Iran that want to sing, that can't? What is your advice to them? To Khanum Homa Sarshar. I mean, you name it. I had everybody in that kitchen talking about the future of Iran and to especially the younger generation in Iran. We shot it, very emotional. We held on to it because, again, how do you show this show to Iran? And just a few weeks ago, we got a call that it's time, Nowruz is coming. What better time when we all feel renewed and hopeful? So we started running Berizo Bepaz, Shally. I think we're halfway through airing them now. And my gosh, it just...
Good feedback?
Amazing feedback from Iran. This is targeted towards people inside of Iran. Having said that, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere. So we have Iranians from Australia, from Europe, Japan, everybody watching these shows. And I love it when the older grandmas come up to me and sometimes they look at me very serious. Like I'm like, oh, they're going to yell at me right now and tell me, Narach, don't stop. They get my hand and they're like, I love that Ashpazi show that you do. Don't ever stop dancing. Like just to see that, or the messages that I see from people in Iran, Rasht, they're sending
Tell
me.
us about Rasht. You talk a lot about Rasht.
Tijana Khorban. Yes, I dream to go back. I know nothing about Rasht except...
Did you visit Rasht when you went to Iran those 2 times you mentioned?
Yes, when I was very young though. Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
All
18 months doesn't count.
But they said it doesn't count. They send me so many pictures from Rasht. And they're like, Shally, you're going to come and dance here one day. You're going to come do this one day. And we're going to go there. We'll do it. But for now, this is the closest I can get to Iran in their TVs. They're all turning on their TVs in the morning. And I get to be in Iran right now.
Yeah.
And that is pretty darn amazing.
Do you have any regrets about... This could go a lot of ways. Do you have any regrets about... the decision
is time
that
up?
you...
Does that mean time is up? No.
The decision,
I thought you were coming to say time's up. This becomes a hard question.
The decision that you made, we've talked about it a bit, but for a long time, especially before Massa was murdered, and we had been doing NUFDI work for about 2 years at that point, and we so consistently got, from people I think are well-intentioned people, good people, I don't want to cast any aspersions on their character, but said, you broke through that wall, and maybe somebody wouldn't consider
I'm one of those people.
Yeah,
I'm one of those people.
People wouldn't consider it political, but talking about the murder of Iranian children, the gender apartheid that Iranian women face, I mean, I don't consider that politics. I consider that just humanity, but some people may consider that a political issue. So let's just call it politics. You've, blown through that wall, and you've sort of, decided that, okay, I'm going to talk about these things. Do you have any regrets about doing that?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
And will you continue to do this?
Yes. The form and the way that I do it needs to shift and adjust. And I need to be nimble based on what's happening, balancing the career and the job that I have and the responsibilities that I have. But no, it will not stop. There are stories that need to be told. There is a regime that needs to change. There are people that are crying for help. And by me saying I regret or that, I'm turning my back on them. And we are all turning our back on them. And I think we can't. I mean, at this point, we've just come too far. So we shall go step by step. Some days we have to talk about it loudly and boldly. And some days it just needs to be a little quieter just so that we can readjust, catch our breath, and then come back again. It cannot, at least for me, it can't be all Iran, all day, all the time because of the responsibilities that I carry on a day-to-day basis. it is here in my heart, as one time you once told me, and I carry this everywhere, is that if all of us did something for Iran, even once a day, it could be a very small thing. That in itself is huge. And maybe a few years ago, a lot of us didn't do this, but we are now. And that's more than we did a few years ago. So hopefully that will continue to keep on moving forward.
I think all of us who do this, who have made this decision, do so because of, Kian Pir Falak, who's behind you.
Oh, is he behind me? Oh. Hey, John.
Massa or Nika or Hadis or the people whose names that, we don't know, the people who are still in Iran, who are fighting every day. Because everything that we've talked about, everything that we can discuss in the Iranian-American community, oh, this person was mean to me on Twitter, oh, this person was not nice to me, oh, Falan Kaspalan chap nigah kyar, it's not even on the same wavelength. It's not even comparable to what people in Iran are dealing with. That's why when I get frustrated with people like, oh, there's so much infighting, it's like, are you kidding me? You're seriously talking about a conversation that maybe somebody was not nice to you on Twitter and people were being shot in the eye?
I completely agree. But can I just counter that for one moment? Because I think that if we do better as a community to talk and unify and not use this energy to attack one another, things would be very different in Iran today. Very different. And I think that that's a reality of our opposing opinions. And if we really want to make change, I know that we don't want to focus compared to what really that the price that they've had to pay. But when you want to create an army, that kind of stuff needs to stop, Cameron. It really does. We are much more powerful if we hold each other's hands and stop wasting our time on these things.
Totally agree. So that was really my question. Okay. Because we can try to have some of these conversations. Yes. We can try to change people. We can, as I always try to assume that everyone you're speaking with has good intentions. That may, prove to not be true, but that's a good assumption to start with, I think. A helpful assumption, as you said. But we can't control everyone. Nope. We can't control others. We can only control what we do. So with the Kians and the Nikas and Massas and everyone and 85 million Iranians inside in mind, what is your advice to people? Because you've talked about some of the difficulties, the criticisms, some of the intricacies of our community, yet you continue to do this. You continue to use your platforms, albeit in different ways. Sometimes you said that has to adjust depending on the circumstances and what's appropriate. What is your advice to people who maybe they're like you or me, who were born and raised here in the United States? Maybe they are, have come from Iran, but in any case, they care about what's going on in Iran. But it's difficult to do something every day for Iran when you're a full-time professional, when you're a full-time mom and a wife or a husband or a kid, whatever, you're going to college. What advice can you give to people about continuing the fight? And I use the word fight, again, incomparable to what's going on inside Iran, but our own little fight, our own little piece of the puzzle. What advice do you have for people about how to continue doing this and how to continue to be involved?
I think stay engaged, number one, and just be in the know. Not all of us can do what you do and what NUFDI does. Like, this is your job every day to do this. But still being aware of what's happening, talking about it, even these small conversations that you have with people that you may not think have a part in this. Those, the narrative that we're all creating right now about Iran and we're talking about Iran, these things all build on top of each other. So staying engaged, number one, being kind to one another. We can all disagree and have different opinions, but there is a level of keeping that respect, that ihtiram. There are a lot of people I disagree with, but I was always raised and taught that there's a way to have very constructive and productive conversations with people and not to cross that, because when you cross that, that anger is not going to get us anywhere. I think it hurts us in the long run. And at the same time, just work on your community. Work on the community, work on the kids. Keep raising these solid, peaceful, non-angry people. We'll get a lot farther together if we have that. If we raise a generation that can come sit around a table and say, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to problem solve this? That's where we're going to make a change. So if you can do that in your own families, parents do it with your kids, teach your kids how to have these hard conversations with people, how to do it in the community. I think those are easy things that all of us have access to do. And when we say do something for Iran, even celebrating Nowruz, bringing it to your school, bringing it to the forefront, you're keeping the conversation alive. Yes, we celebrated Nowruz. It's my favorite time of the year. I love it. But in between all of this, we still are talking about people that don't get to celebrate Nowruz the way they should be celebrating Nowruz. And we can use this beautiful holiday to keep conversation going about this, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great way to end. And again, so thankful for you for joining us on this first episode of this relaunched podcast in the Nowruz 2-week period. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
This wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
We'll have you back. But نوروزتون پیروز. انشالله که سالی پر از شادی و موفقیت و سلامتی. شما بهروز جان، بچهای عزیز.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us.
Thank you. نوروز شما پیروز. Till next time. Next time I'm going to ask you the question.
Till next time. Thank you.
Thank you.